By far, the most popular theory that I've seen on the Amazing Digital Circus has to be the digital copy theory, which basically states that every single person in the circus is actually a digitized clone of the real human who put on the VR headset. And although the version of them that is currently trapped inside the circus is an exact duplicate of their real self, they are not the original versions, which would provide a perfect explanation for what happened to their real bodies in the outside world. Their OG selves just simply put on the headsets thinking it was something cool they had just found in an abandoned building, and then they just walked out and continued on, not really thinking anything more. Meanwhile, the copy of themselves that they just created roams free in the circus, 100% unaware that their entire life began the moment the real them took off the headset, with their memories, although feeling completely real to them, aren't their memories at all, and are simply copied over from the original human. And the thing that everyone always uses as a comparison to help better understand this theory is the game SOMA by Frictional Games. They're also the same people who made Amnesia, and we all know that game. But anyway, the game SOMA is widely recognized by many people, myself included, as an absolute masterpiece of storytelling, designed to leave you questioning the very definition of what it means to be sentient, with Simon Jarrett, the main character, being transferred into a new body multiple times throughout the game, with the catch being that he doesn't actually get transferred into the new body. His mind simply gets copied over into the new body, with all of the memories up until that point in the game. So for all of us playing, it's a seamless transition into the next body so that we can progress. But in reality, we are quite literally swapping characters. And as for the version of Simon that we played the majority of the game with, he gets either left behind or killed depending on what you decide to do. So essentially, you're murdering someone who is identical to you in nearly every way. And it's these sorts of moments in the game that really make you question what it means to be a sentient being. Are we technically more deserving of this identity just because we the players happen to be seeing the game through the copy's perspective? Or are we not? Later on in the game, Simon actually has pretty interesting dialogue when him and Catherine are alone in the climber.
Have we figured out what happens when we die yet? Is that even possible? If there's some kind of afterlife, do you think my place is taken? The real me died like 100 years ago. Is there still room for me? And what about the Simon I killed at Omicron? What do you think, Catherine? Is there a heaven full of redundant copies of the same people? Is there someone up there who called me an imposter? It's dumb luck, right? I woke up in the right body. I basically flipped a coin, and if I had called the wrong side, I'd be rotting away at Omicron. I mean, there's nowhere to know, right? You didn't hit the make sure Simon wakes up in the right body switch, did you? Not that you would know. I mean, he would still claim to be the right Simon. Christ. This is awful. We did an awful f***ing thing. And you wouldn't mind? Why would you? How could you know that it's not me, the me that I am, the same that I've always been?
Despite the original version of Simon being the basis for this Simon's psyche, this version of him that we play as, and even the version that we spend the first half of the game with, feels, at least to a certain extent, like their own people. And to even better understand this, let's not forget about the ending, where we once again make a copy of our brains in order to send it to the digital utopia known as the Ark. But the problem once again is that the Simon that we copy over onto the Ark didn't experience any of the memories that we the player did, or even the Simon in Toronto did. This version of Simon, much like Pomni and all the other Simons out there, is cursed with memories and experiences that don't belong to him. None of these characters actually experience the memories that they have in their head. It's all an illusion. None of the people that we play as past the initial scan at the very beginning of the game are actually Simon Simon. They may think and sound like Simon, but they're not. They, unlike Pomni, just don't have the luxury of a ringleader that deletes the memory of their names and gives them new ones so they can begin to be their own people. Or in other words, the lived experiences of these individuals will never be exactly the same. Therefore, they might as well be completely different people altogether. So, with that in mind, do any of these Simons, or even Pomni, deserve to exist any less than their human counterparts just because they technically aren't the original? Or does the word original even mean anything here? Do their experiences, and more importantly their suffering, mean just as much as any person regardless of who they're technically a copy of? This is essentially the basis of this entire theory, that even if Pomni and the rest of the circus members aren't their real human selves but copies of them, that still wouldn't necessarily mean that they matter any less as individuals. They can still think and feel emotions just as much as anyone else. They can both subscribe to my channel, which by the way you should definitely do that too, but most importantly, from the moment they're copied onward, their lives are entirely independent to them. The Simon Jarrett in Toronto will never experience the same things that Simon in Upsilon experiences. The same way Pomni in the real world will never experience the circus the way our Pomni does. So from that perspective, they're functionally entirely different individuals. They both just so happen to be pulling from the same core framework, since they both, by no choice of their own, possess largely the same memory structure. They're really no different than they would be if they were instead from alternate realities, which presumably would mean that the moral value of their lives shouldn't be perceived as any less than the originals. But with all of this in mind, doesn't that mean that the circus members just won't ever escape? I mean, if they are indeed copies, then all hope of them being able to find a way out is pretty much gone, right? I mean, for all we know, the digital circus is this world's version of the Ark, with Kane being designed to keep the brain scans from degrading over time. And although there could potentially be a way out somehow, it really wouldn't matter anyway because there's nothing to go back to. Humanity is dead and gone. Society as we know it has crumbled into ruins. Which, of course, would mean that what we may be witnessing here in the amazing digital circus is literally the last droplet of humanity that managed by some stroke of luck to be brought to life in this mystical video game world by the AI Kane, long after the brain scans of a large group of individuals were somehow preserved upon each of the members stumbling across and putting on the strange headset, and then just walking away and continuing their lives, not even skipping a beat. They all lived and died, and then years later the events of the circus take place, where the preserved human brains are dropped into the circus and kept alive simply because Kane is somehow still powered on, and conveniently enough has a never-ending directive to keep making adventures. This outcome that I've just described would at least give a little bit of meaning to the circus members' experiences. If there is nothing to go back to, then there really is no scenario where they actually leave the circus. Unless they would rather choose to live in an empty world with literally no one left over a digital plane where at least they don't have to sleep or eat or worry about any sort of sickness. Well, except for abstraction. But since we brought it up, abstraction could actually work in our favor if this theory does indeed turn out to be true. Let me explain. Since episode 7 has come out, we can officially say that we have seen firsthand the process that someone in the circus goes through right before they abstract and turn into the monster that Kaufmo and all the rest of the past members became too. And during this process, we can actually see that towards the end, Jax was seemingly starting to be taken somewhere else that isn't the circus. It's a little hard to make out exactly where he's being transported, but consider the following. If we assume for a second for the sake of argument that he was being taken to a different place, and that this is indeed the same place where all abstracted humans go, then that potentially provides an entirely different explanation for abstraction than we originally thought. What if abstraction isn't a person turning into a monster, it's actually a result of the person's mind being physically disconnected from the in-game player character? So when they abstract in the circus and they're transported to this alternate plane of existence, the computer has nothing left to do with the shell that they just left behind. And in turn, it becomes a mindless rampaging glitch that can only be contained by the likes of Kane. Because the human that used to inhabit that avatar has already moved on to a different place that you can't normally access in the circus. And now that I think about it, this theory really would help make sense of why abstraction is caused by losing your sanity or intense depression. Even though they are technically human souls, they still have to be processed by a computer. And computers, of course, can only handle so much, resulting in their digital bodies repeatedly cracking under the stress of trying to process intense human emotions. So, with all of that confusing stuff aside, as this theory currently stands, what's actually the bottom line here? Well, if Gooseworks does decide to go this route, then we can pretty much assume that the members of the circus won't ever be escaping anytime soon, with them likely coming to grips with the fact that they are indeed digital copies of humans that have already lived and died, and that the most important thing to hold on to now is the friends we made along the way. Or they could go a slightly darker route with this theory, where there is no time skip at all and humanity is still very much going on and thriving without this group of people, because to them, nothing was lost. Like we stated earlier, the humans would have just put on the headsets and walked out not knowing what they had just done. So, for all intents and purposes, these individuals who are trapped in this digital hell are essentially nothing but ghosts in the eyes of the outside world. There would never really be any logical reason for anyone to try to go looking for them. And really the only thing they could take comfort in is the idea that when they all inevitably abstract, that maybe they do all go to the same place. I mean, Kane can't keep them stimulated forever, and honestly, at the rate he's been going, he's doing more harm than good. And if they do find out that the one thing they've been striving for the entire series was never actually possible in the first place, and that they have no choice but to spend the rest of their existence right where they are, it's really only a matter of time until they all lose it and succumb to the exact same fate as every single person before them. But I guess if this theory does turn out to be true, it would definitely be the darkest ending in all of indie animation. But anyway, I love every single one of you with all my heart. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.